You ever notice how some people wake up every morning convinced the world appointed them sheriff of everything? Yeah, that's pretty much how this whole mess started. See, out on the edge of Willow Creek, where the air still smells like dirt and diesel and the sun rises slow over rolling fields, lived a guy named Evan Brody. Evan wasn't flashy, wasn't loud, wasn't trying to win anything except maybe the eternal battle against weeds in his driveway. He just wanted to run his family farm the way his dad and granddad had before him. Simple, honest, quiet. But quiet doesn't last long when trouble drives a Lexus. That trouble showed up in the form of Meredith Clark, president, queen, and self-proclaimed moral compass of the Silver Ridge Lakeside HOA. Picture a woman who ironed her jeans, color-coded her recycling bins, and believed that neighborhood rules were sacred scripture. She lived 1 mile from Evan's farm, which in her mind meant she was practically his landlord. And if there was one thing Meredith hated more than chaos, it was anything she couldn't control. The first time she marched up to Evan's porch, she looked like she was about to serve him a subpoena or convert him to her religion of perfectly coordinated shutters. Clipboard, blazer, not a hair out of place. Evan was sipping his morning coffee, old mug, chipped rim, taste of home, when he saw her heel marching across his gravel drive. "You must be Mr. Brody," she said, as if the name itself annoyed her. "That's me," Evan replied, lifting his mug in a half salute. "Coffee." She ignored the joke. "I'm Meredith Clark, president of the Silver Ridge HOA. I wanted to talk to you about your property." Evan blinked slowly. "My property," he repeated. "Pretty sure that's the key word here. Mine." Her smile tightened like she'd swallowed a lemon seed. "Well, technically yes. But your land does border our community, and several residents have expressed concerns about the aesthetics." Evan almost laughed. "Aesthetics?" "Yes. The barn, for instance. It's," she paused, as if searching for a polite word. "Very red." "It's a barn," Evan said. "And your rooster," she continued. "People are being woken up before sunrise. It's disruptive." Evan leaned one shoulder against the porch post, enjoying himself. "Ma'am, it's a rooster. That's kind of the whole job." Her nostrils flared. "Mr. Brody, we want to maintain a certain standard in Silver Ridge. A cohesive look. A peaceful atmosphere. I believe your cooperation would benefit everyone." "Appreciate the suggestion," Evan said, setting his mug down. "But your rules don't apply here." Her eyes flashed. "Oh, we'll see about that." Then she spun on her heel and marched away like she had just declared war. And in her mind, she had. The next week, the letters started. Stiff, formal notices on HOA letterhead that smelled like printer ink and self-importance. Unapproved structure color. Non-compliant livestock. Noise disturbances. All of them nonsense. All of them outside her jurisdiction. Evan taped the first 2 on his fridge. By the 5th one, he had a whole collection like they were baseball cards. Then came the county inspectors, health department, zoning, animal services, one after another, showing up with clipboards and apologetic eyes. Evan passed every inspection with flying colors. The farm was spotless. But every officer muttered the same thing on their way out. "Someone really doesn't like you." But it wasn't until the day Evan heard a chainsaw buzzing near his fence line that he realized Meredith had crossed from annoying into dangerous. A construction crew stood on his land, erecting an enormous steel privacy fence. Ugly, cold, towering like a prison wall. And sure enough, Meredith stood nearby supervising, tapping her heel impatiently. Evan walked up slowly, fists in his pockets, jaw tight. "Mind telling me what you're doing?" Meredith turned, pretending to be pleasantly surprised. "Oh, Mr. Brody, we're just installing a community privacy barrier. You'll barely notice it. On my land." "Well," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy, "property lines can be misinterpreted. We've consulted older maps. Turns out you've been using a few feet that aren't technically yours." Evan took a breath. He wasn't a man who got angry easily, but this hit different. He asked the workers, "You all got a permit for this?" They looked at each other, nervous. HOA said everything was cleared. "It's not," Evan said. "And in about 20 seconds, this becomes trespassing." Then he pulled out his phone. "Sheriff's number," he said calmly. "Want me to call, or you want to start packing up?" The workers didn't need convincing. Tools dropped, generators shut off, trucks backed out. Meredith was fuming. "You can't do this," she snapped. "Pretty sure I just did." Evan replied. She drove off so fast she kicked dust all over his boots. Evan knew she wouldn't stop, so he prepared. He organized every deed, map, survey, permit, even documents his grandfather signed decades ago. He handed copies straight to the sheriff. Tom, Evan said, she steps foot on my property again. I want this on record. Sheriff Tom Caldwell, who'd known Evan since he was a kid, shook his head. Son, that woman's gonna bury herself long before we need to dig anything. And he was right, because Evan didn't just defend himself, he started fighting back. First, roosters. Meredith hated one rooster, so Evan bought 2 more. Every morning at 4:55 a.m., they'd start their own little choir. Then, sunflowers. Meredith called his fields an eyesore. So Evan planted a 40-foot wide border of towering sunflowers along the road. A golden, beautiful, impossible to ignore middle finger. But his favorite move came thanks to his buddy Caleb, who ran the Willow Creek Farmers Market. You know, Caleb said, if you held a weekend market out here, you'd get the whole town. And it's perfectly legal. So they hosted a farm day. Families came. Kids played with goats. A bluegrass trio showed up with banjos. People parked everywhere. Laughter carried across the fields. And Meredith stormed up like a tornado in designer heels. This is outrageous, she shouted over the music. You can't have hundreds of people here. Actually, Evan said, folding his arms, I checked. Agritourism is fully allowed. Want me to print you a copy? She opened and closed her mouth like a fish. No comeback. But the moment everything shifted was when her own HOA members turned on her. Residents who'd been quietly suffering under her rule started approaching Evan secretly. She fined us for leaving our Halloween pumpkin out too long. She ripped up our kids' sidewalk chalk. She threatened to evict us for a garden gnome. One guy, a retired Marine named Don, dropped a folder on Evan's porch. Inside were internal HOA emails, proving Meredith had been filing fake complaints under fake resident names. That woman's a tyrant, Don said, and she's about to get what's coming. Evan almost felt bad for her. Almost. The final straw came when the HOA tried to put up no trespassing, private community signs on the public road leading to his farm. They were claiming the county road was now HOA property. Evan didn't even have to do anything. The county official came out, ripped every sign down, and gave Meredith a warning that basically said, try that again and we'll fine you into dust. By that evening, Silver Ridge was in open rebellion. They called an emergency HOA meeting. The room was packed. Homeowners who'd never attended before were standing shoulder to shoulder, arms crossed. Meredith sat at the front, still trying to look composed. The HOA president, a soft-spoken older man named Mr. Reynolds, cleared his throat. We have received formal documentation showing misconduct, fake reports, unauthorized spending, misuse of HOA resources, and illegal attempts to interfere with county property. This is ridiculous. Meredith snapped. I've only ever done what's best for this neighborhood. Don stood up from the back. No, you did what was best for you. Linda Martinez, who had baked Evan a pie once this all started, added, you nearly got us sued because of your ego. The room erupted. People shouted. Papers slammed on tables. Years of resentment pouring out all at once. Then Mr. Reynolds called a vote. It wasn't even close. Meredith Clark was officially removed as HOA enforcer and barred from representing the community ever again. She stood there trembling, humiliated, furious, powerless. A woman who built her identity on control, suddenly watching it crumble in front of the very people she ruled. The next morning, a for sale sign appeared in front of her lakefront house. By the end of the week, she was gone. And Evan? He put up a new wooden sign at the edge of his farm. Brody Farm, established 1951, HOA free and proud of it. Families came by to take photos. Teens made TikToks. Local shops sold t-shirts with the slogan. It became a whole thing. But the best part? The rumor that trickled back months later. Meredith had moved into another HOA community in a different city and immediately got smacked with violations from their enforcer, a woman even stricter than she had been. Grass too tall. Trash invisible from the street. Holiday wreath hung one day too early. Within a month, she had her house up for sale again. And Evan? He just sat on his porch some afternoons, sipping coffee, watching his roosters strut around, smiling to himself. Life had a funny way of balancing the scales. So here's the question. and I want y'all to be honest in the comments. Do you think HOAs actually protect property values, or are they just tools for power-hungry people to control their neighbors? And second, have you ever dealt with someone like Meredith, someone who took a little bit of authority and turned it into a personal empire? I genuinely want to hear your stories, because I guarantee this video isn't the only time karma came knocking.